Jim Howard here. I'm starting out on a great adventure. I'm going to be going about 2 blocks to pick up a prescription for my ex-wife. Going to Walgreens. I think it's about 36 degrees, something like that. But the sun is shining really bright. Last week or whatever, there was a small little, a little bit of snow, a little bit of ice, and Texas came to a shutdown. Nobody could go anywhere or do anything. Grocery stores, because they didn't have standby generators, had to throw their meat away. I forget what the law is. When I was in, well, not law, but regulations, that grocery stores, if they're, lose power within, they have X number of hours. I forget how long. It's not very long, and then they have to throw away all of the products that need refrigeration and freezing. And so that's what happened when I was down there. Well, anyway, Texas stores had to throw their products away, and there were Texans, lots of them. I mean, out at the dumpsters behind the grocery stores, in the dumpsters, looked like, I don't know, third world country. No offense intended to third world countries. And people were in there, getting meat and stuff like that. Now, before I left, when we had there were several small hurricanes and one big one when I was down there for the 5 years in Miami. But after, and we were without electricity for, I think 4 or 5 days. And the grocery stores there, had to throw their stuff out after, I don't know how long, whatever it is. And they did it, but then I was working at CompUSA, which was on the other side of the shopping center or something from the grocery store. And grocery stores were installing standby generators, big enough that they could power the the grocery store. And here I am, all these years later, in Texas, and the governor of Texas doesn't, I guess, think that grocery stores need, standby generators. Texas is number one, I don't think we're number one. I don't think Texas is number one in anything except for ego, and Texas, I believe, out of 50 states, has the lowest or the next to the lowest high school graduation in the nation. But well, everybody should have a high school education. I had to go to summer school 4 years in a row to get a high school education. But I can see there's a whole bunch of people here in Texas that have been able to get jobs without a high school education. Truck driving and other jobs. I'm not putting down truck drivers, by the way, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos of truck drivers. You need to be you need to have a degree in business administration. You have to, if you're, well, any kind of, but if it's an 18-wheeler or whatever, you have to And what does it cost to fill one of those things up? You know, you have to be able to, you know. So I'm not putting truck drivers down of any sort, but Texas, you know, Texas should have better education and better everything. And they, you know, and then when they claim they're number one and how great Texas is and all that kind of stuff, they wouldn't be lying to people, you know. I think this is, I'm not sure if this is the first time that the first time recently that I have walked. No, I guess, no, wait a minute. I went to Brahms. You may have seen that video. I'll see if I can get, without getting my feet wet here. Yeah, I walked down to Brahms, and that's about as far the other direction as Walgreens is. Oh, that's why I started on my long rambling thing, because of the little snowstorm, and I mean little, and the little cold spell here. Texas just came to a screeching halt. The governor of Texas, Abbott, he spent 4 or 5 hours non-stop television to the people of Texas, and then he came back again and did it for I think another hour or whatever, telling the people of Texas that the Texas grid was okay, and at this time, of course, I don't think he mentioned the hundreds that died a couple years ago or whatever, when the Texas grid failed. Because Texas, of course, has its own grid. You know, it's like, fuck the East Coast of the United States and the West Coast. We have our own grid, but then the grid doesn't meet the standards. You know, if they wanted to hook up to, the East Coast grid or the West Coast grid of the United States, they wouldn't be allowed to, because you have to maintain your, like the East Coast maintains their grid, and they're not going to let somebody tie into it whose grid is going to be failing all the time and who doesn't, spend the money to fix things. Texas has a way. Texas is good at some things. One of the things they're good at is setting up systems for rich people to make money off of things. I couldn't. If I would be rich if I could figure out how Texas does it. How they screw people with the grid system. But one thing is by not maintaining it. And then just recently, when hundreds died here in Texas because the grid failed, because the people making all this money didn't. And there was a part of the thing that was subject to some legislation. They could be sued or something. And so Governor Abbott and the people, what they did is whatever it was, whatever agency or whatever, they just changed it. I'm not sure what from being a corporation. I'm not sure what they changed it to, but all they did was change the thing. And therefore it couldn't be sued or going to criminal court or something. And that's the way they do things. Well, I think I'm going to make it. I can see Walgreens. By the way, I've mentioned this before. I know I repeat things a little bit, well, more than a little bit, and but many years ago. Let's see, it's been over 10, because I came down to, just before they closed at night, I walked down to Walgreens to get some stuff, you know, chips and dip and stuff like that. And I came in just before closing time. Anyway, my son and I had been a few days before, or a week before, or 2 weeks before, at a mall, and my son's big into vitamins, and we went into one of those places that sells all kinds of stuff, 90% of which probably does not work and you don't need. But he bought a big jar of vitamins, super vitamins, you know. I never saw some, when you look at the list of vitamins and how much, you know, if you take it, how much you're getting and whatever. And then I didn't ask, didn't want. He bought me a big jar also. So I started taking them. And about a week or so, or 2 weeks, I'm not sure exactly. I was coming down here, and it was about this position here. As I was walking, I thought, I got this feeling, oh my God, I feel like when I was, you know, a preteen or whatever, outside playing all day, jumping, running, climbing trees, doing everything. And I thought, those vitamins, it must be those vitamins that I'm taking. Wow. You know, I feel like I'm 15 years old and, you know, whatever, instead of how old I am. And then I went inside the store, and then I started feeling funny. I was about the only customer in the store. They were pretty close to closing. And then I headed for the checkout lane. Well, there wasn't a lane because nobody was there. Next thing I knew, I was looking up from the floor at the clerk, and I said, what happened? I was on the floor. And she said, you passed out. She said, we called 911. And I said, I've never passed out in my life. And I said, I'm okay. I was had a little difficulty getting up, actually. And I said, you can tell 911, you know, tell the paramedics they don't need to respond. I'll just walk on home. Actually, the pharmacist was getting ready to go home. He came over and he said, where do you live? You know, and I said, well, about 2 blocks from here. He says, I'll drive you home. And then the firemen showed up first with their equipment, and they hooked me up. They said, look at that, I think it was like 60 or something. I forget what it was. I can't remember now what it was. There's a video of me laying in the ambulance, by the way. I made a little video, short one. I'm going to have to end this here.